I used to joke that my wife traveled more than the pilots. Friends would ask where Jenna was this week, and I'd shrug and say, whichever city has the best room service. It sounded lighthearted, like I was a laid-back husband who trusted his successful, ambitious partner. Truth was, I did trust her. For 10 years, I watched her climb from junior account manager to regional sales director, flying out of Atlanta almost every month. She loved the energy of airports, the hotel loyalty points, the shiny company credit card. I loved seeing her proud of herself. We'd grown up in a small Georgia town where the biggest dream most people had was a decent truck and season tickets to college football. Jenna had always wanted more. When she landed the job with the medical supply company, she called me from the parking lot, voice shaking with excitement, and I promised I'd be the kind of husband who never held her back. Back then, business trip meant long phone calls from hotel rooms with bad wallpaper, photos of airport meals, and gifts she brought home. A ball cap from Chicago, a mug from Denver, a tiny snow globe from Boston. The first time something felt off, it was so small I almost let it slide. She said she'd be in Dallas for 3 nights. I was watching game highlights on the couch when a random thought hit me. I opened the airline app on my phone to check whether her flight had landed. We shared the login for points. Her ticket said Phoenix. I stared at the screen, convinced I'd mixed up some old reservation. I checked the dates, the departure time, the confirmation number. Everything pointed to Phoenix. She called a few minutes later, all cheerful. Said the Dallas hotel had hideous floral curtains and the air conditioner sounded like a freight train. I listened, answering at the right places, but my chest felt tight. Send me a picture, I said without thinking, of the world-famous curtains. She laughed. You're such a goof, she said.
I'm starving.
Let me grab something to eat first. The picture never came. I told myself companies switched flights all the time. Maybe she had a connection in Phoenix. Maybe I was misreading something. Married people make a sport out of explaining away the things they don't want to see. 2 months later, she went on a team retreat to Orlando. My mom had just had minor surgery, and I asked Jenna if she could reschedule. She said the meetings were locked in, that her boss, Craig, had flown all the way from New York, and that she really needed to be there. That name, Craig, had been floating around our life for a while. I'd met him once during a holiday party. Tall, polished, good at making people feel like the most interesting person in the room. He told me Jenna was the best thing to happen to their sales numbers, then clinked his glass against mine like we were teammates. The weekend of the retreat, I drove my mom to her follow-up appointment. While she was inside with the doctor, I sat in the car and scrolled through social media. Out of habit, I opened Jenna's Instagram. She hardly ever posted anything, but I liked to see the old pictures. Us at the lake, our goofy Halloween costumes, the blurry selfie from our anniversary dinner. A new story popped up. A boomerang video at a tiki bar, torches flickering in the background, a crowded patio. I paused it. You couldn't see Jenna, but you could hear her laugh, and right at the edge of the frame I caught a flash of a familiar watch on a man's wrist. A gold one with a black face. I'd noticed it at that holiday party when Craig had wrapped an arm around Jenna for a group photo. I replayed the video several times, hoping I was wrong. The username at the top of the screen belonged to someone from her office, a woman named Kayla I'd met once. The caption read, "Best leadership retreat ever." Under it, 3 tags. One was Jenna, one was the company, and one was Craig. My fingers felt numb. I could have kept telling myself that bosses,
À ton retraite.
that coworkers go out for drinks. But as I watched the loop of flickering torches and that same hand brushing past the camera over and over, something ugly, heavy, and cold settled into my stomach. When Jenna got home Sunday night, she looked tired but strangely bright, like she was coming down from a high she didn't want to admit she'd enjoyed. She hugged me in the kitchen, suitcase thumping against the tile. Her perfume smelled different, stronger. "How was Mom's appointment?" she asked. "Fine," I said. "Everything's healing." She kissed my cheek. "Good. You look wiped out. Rough weekend." I almost blurted out everything right there. The Phoenix ticket, the tiki bar, the watch, the ache in my chest that had been building for weeks. Instead, I heard myself say, "Just a lot of driving." Because that's what you do when you're not ready for your whole life to change in one conversation. You shut your mouth and hope the discomfort goes away. Didn't. It grew teeth. I started paying attention. Not in some movie-style secret agent way. Just noticing. When she said she had back-to-back Zoom calls, she'd close the office door and laugh a little too brightly. When she texted that she'd be late because of traffic, her location bubble on my phone showed she was still at the office long after most people had gone home. One night, while she showered, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. My name flashed across the screen by habit. She'd set all notifications to show as from husband or from mom instead of displaying previews. But this one lit up with a contact photo I didn't recognize before it quickly dimmed. I didn't touch it. I told myself snooping crossed a line. I tried to be noble, tried to be the guy who trusted until given proof he couldn't. The proof arrived on a Thursday. I'd left work early because a storm was rolling through, and my boss didn't want anyone stuck on flooded roads. When I got home, the house was quiet. Jenna was supposedly in Nashville, giving a presentation to a hospital group. I walked into her office to grab my headphones. Her laptop, the one she usually took everywhere, sat on the desk, screen still glowing. An email window was open. At the top of the thread, flight confirmation. The sender, the corporate travel agency. The dates, the Nashville trip. The destination, New York City. My pulse accelerated. I scrolled. Below the confirmation, there were replies, personal ones. Craig, can't wait to see you. Dinner at our spot. Jenna, you know I can't say no to you. The last line from Craig again clawed at me. You're worth every risk. I don't know how long I stood there. The storm outside cracked, thunder rattling the windows, but inside the office everything felt very still. My world had tilted, yet the framed photos on the wall, our wedding day, our first house, the goofy shot of us in Braves jerseys, stayed perfectly straight. That night I sat at the dining table, laptop open, and read through months of emails. She'd never logged out. The affair was right there in black and white. Hotel bookings, inside jokes, plans that included phrases like, tell him it's another training, and I'll call from the hotel like usual. I learned they'd been meeting in different cities for almost a year. It wasn't every trip. Some were real, which almost felt worse. Deception threaded through the ordinary. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. A strange clarity settled over me instead. Like the air after a storm when every branch and blade of grass looks too sharp. She'd taken my trust, stretched it like a rope, and used it to sneak out the door. I thought about marching into Craig's Manhattan office, about confronting them both in whatever hotel they were sharing, about cameras and witnesses and grand public scenes. Every version played in my head like a cheap drama, and everyone ended with me looking small and desperate. I didn't want to be a broken man begging for explanations. I wanted something else, something cleaner. That night, I started planning. First, I printed everything. Emails, itineraries, hotel receipts filed through her rewards account, the Phoenix ticket, the Orlando retreat schedule with the leadership dinner circled. I slid the stack into a manila envelope and locked it in my desk. Evidence not for a courtroom, but for whatever came next. Then I called a lawyer. Not one of those billboard attorneys with giant grinning faces, but a calm woman named Alvarez a friend had used during his divorce. I told her I needed information, just in case. She listened without judgment, asked direct questions, and laid out my options. Georgia doesn't require a reason to end a marriage, she said, but proof of infidelity could affect negotiations. She explained property division, spousal support possibilities, how to protect joint accounts without doing anything illegal or vindictive. Her tone stayed neutral, steady, like she'd guided many people through storms worse than mine. When I hung up, I felt something close to steady myself. I wasn't going to smash windows or slash tires. I would be smart, patient, unforgettable. The next step came from staring at our closet. Jenna loved clothes. Our walk-in looked like a tiny boutique. Suits and garment bags, silk dresses lined up by color, enough shoes to supply a theater company. She treated her wardrobe like armor, each outfit chosen to impress executives, strangers on airplanes, hotel lobby bartenders. As I stood there, breathing in the faint mix of fabric softener and her favorite perfume, an idea slid quietly into place. Not violent, not illegal, just symbolic, sharp, and impossible to ignore. I pictured our front lawn, the neighbor kids' bikes tossed in their yard next door, the maple tree we'd planted the year we bought the house. I pictured luggage tumbling across grass, the bright flare of fabric catching evening light. If she was going to come home from one more business trip, like nothing had changed, she wasn't going to walk into the same life. I started to prepare, step by careful step, while pretending everything was normal. At breakfast the next morning, I poured her coffee like I always did, listened to her rehearsed speech about the important client dinner in New York, and even kissed her goodbye at the door. She pulled her suitcase down the walkway, heels clicking on the concrete. I watched from the window as she loaded it into the rideshare. The car pulled away, taillights glowing red through the drizzle. Behind me, the closet door stood slightly ajar, waiting. Jenna thought she was leaving for just another trip. She had no idea what would be waiting for her when she came back. I didn't rush anything. That was the key. Acting out of anger would have made everything messy and desperate, and I refused to give her that version of me. If she was going to face consequences, they would arrive with the calm precision she'd never expected from the man she thought would stay blind forever. While she was in New York, actually in New York this time, I spent the weekend making quiet changes. I moved my important documents into a small fireproof safe in the garage. I transferred half the balance of our joint checking into my personal account, exactly what the lawyer advised and nothing more. I called the credit card company and removed myself from the travel rewards card she used for her business trips. None of it was secretive. It was simply protective. I wasn't sabotaging her. I was stepping out of the space she'd taken advantage of for too long. The house felt strangely peaceful without her. Not lonely, just honest. I could walk from room to room without wondering if something I said would make her strangely defensive or overly sweet. I could breathe without that quiet tension I hadn't realized had become constant. It was amazing how betrayal made the air different. On Sunday afternoon, I opened the closet doors and stood inside the walk-in one more time. I didn't touch anything yet. I just looked. Every hanger told a story she hadn't shared with me. Every dress had probably been worn somewhere I never knew she'd been. Every blazer she bought for work might have been worn to restaurants I'd never heard about but Craig knew by heart. I selected one suitcase, an older one she rarely used anymore, but still recognizable. I filled it neatly with a few items from her closet. Not the most expensive ones. Not the sentimental ones. Just enough for her to understand the message. Enough for her to see the suitcase and know it wasn't packed for travel. It was packed for truth. That evening, as the sun dropped behind the neighbors' rooftops, I took the suitcase outside. The lawn was damp from the morning rain, the sky turning a soft orange. I set the suitcase in the center of the grass, next to the spot where her car usually parked. Then I placed something beside it, the manila envelope. I hadn't burned anything. I hadn't destroyed her belongings. Nothing illegal, nothing violent. But I had created a scene that would stop her in her tracks, that would make her breath hitch the moment she saw it. To finish the setup, I gathered a small pile of clothes that had been shoved in the back of the closet. Things she didn't wear, old conference shirts, jeans she never reached for. I laid them neatly on the lawn, on a cheap metal fire pit bowl from the garage, and let them burn. Controlled, contained, safe. A clear message without danger. Fabric curled. Smoke drifted upward in thin ribbons. It looked almost ceremonial. I didn't feel satisfaction. Not yet. Just a quiet, steady certainty. Before going inside, I set the gift on top of the suitcase. A simple object. Small. Not harmful, but unmistakable. It was a hotel keycard. One of the identical ones she brought home months earlier by accident, from the Phoenix trip she claimed had been Dallas. I placed it right there on top of the envelope. As the flames died low, the next part was the hardest. Waiting. Her flight landed late. The rideshare pulled up just after midnight. I stayed upstairs, lights off, listening through the slightly open window. The car door shut. Her suitcase wheels rolled on the concrete. A pause. Then another pause. Then a sharp sound, like a breath breaking. I imagined her standing there, staring at the scene. Her old clothes smoldering gently in the bowl, the suitcase packed by someone who knew every secret she had hidden, the envelope fat with printed truth, and that small plastic keycard glowing faintly in the porch light. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. I heard only silence, then footsteps, slow, uncertain, coming toward the house. When the front door opened, she didn't step all the way in. She stood framed there, half in shadow, half in lamplight. "Can we talk?" she whispered. I stayed seated at the kitchen table, hands flat against the wood. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I let her look at me and see someone she couldn't spin excuses to anymore. She swallowed hard. You misunderstood something." That sentence told me everything about who she still thought I was. Someone who could be fooled with soft tones and half-truths. "Don't," I said quietly. "Not tonight. Not after all of that." Her eyes flicked toward the yard. "You burned my things." "I burned the lies," I corrected. "The things that didn't matter to you anyway. The things you never looked for." She stepped inside fully, shutting the door behind her. The click echoed through the house. "Craig and I," she began. "You don't need to explain it," I cut in. "I already know. All of it." Her breath faltered. "You read my emails?" "I read the ones you left open. The rest you gave away in every story you changed." She lowered her head, fingers trembling as she pushed her hair back. She wasn't sad, not really. She was exposed, and she didn't know what came next. "Are you leaving me?" she asked, voice thin. "I haven't decided," I said. "But I've decided this. You don't get to control the story anymore." She sank into the chair across from me, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. "What do you want me to do?" she whispered. "Tell the truth," I said. "To me, to yourself. And then you'll see what comes after." She nodded slowly, but her eyes darted fear, guilt, calculation all twisting inside her at once. She didn't yet know that the real consequences weren't the suitcase, the burning clothes, or the keycard. The real consequences were still coming, and she wasn't ready for any of them. Jenna sat across from me, hands folded so tightly her knuckles drained pale. For the first time in years, she didn't look polished or composed. She looked like someone whose entire script had just been yanked from her hands. I didn't say anything at first. Silence can be heavier than shouting, and she felt every ounce of it. She watched me the way a person watches a judge read a verdict. Finally, she exhaled shakily. "I messed up," she whispered. "I know I did. I know you're hurt. I never meant for it to go this far." There it was, the soft, rehearsed tone she always used when she wanted to smooth over problems. A voice made for apologies that didn't change anything. I didn't look away. "Jenna, this didn't go too far. Started too far. It was never an accident." Her eyes glistened, but she blinked the tears back. Not because she was strong, but because she didn't want tears to ruin the version of the story she thought she could still sell me. "I was overwhelmed," she said. "Work was so demanding." Craig understood the pressure. "Don't do that," I said. "Don't turn this into stress relief. This wasn't a mistake you fell into. You made choices, over and over again. You lied every time you packed a suitcase." She swallowed and looked down. The truth sat between us like something solid. "I didn't want to lose you," she murmured. "You lost me when you stopped choosing me," I said. "You just didn't notice." The words shook her. I watched it happen, the moment she realized she couldn't manipulate her way out of this. Her posture collapsed, shoulders sinking as if someone cut the strings holding her upright. What happens now?" she asked. "That depends on you," I replied. "Because this is the part where you get honest or you get nothing." She nodded slowly. "Ask me anything." So I did. Not with anger, just clarity. I asked how long it had been going on. 1 year and 2 months. I asked why it started. She said she liked the way he made her feel important, noticed, exciting. I asked if she ever tried to stop it. She said yes 3 times, but she went back each time. I asked how many trips were lies. More than I expected. Fewer than I feared. Enough to rewrite our marriage. When she finished, she looked exhausted, as if honesty cost her more energy than the affair ever had. I'm sorry, she said softly. I don't expect forgiveness. But I love you. I never stopped. I breathed in slowly, feeling the weight of her words but not letting them settle. Love isn't something you hide in hotel rooms, Jenna. Her eyes filled again, and this time she didn't fight the tears. They slid quietly down her face. I didn't move to comfort her. That part of me had been burned away with the pile on the lawn. I want to fix this, she whispered. I'll quit my job. I'll cut him off completely. Whatever it takes. I believed she meant it in the moment. Grief can make people promise anything. But rebuilding wasn't about her eagerness. It was about the foundation she'd cracked. I stood and walked to the counter, picking up the manila envelope. I set it in front of her. She didn't touch it, just stared. That's everything, I said. Every lie printed on paper. I needed you to see what you built behind my back. She wiped her cheeks, hesitating. Do you want me to read it? No, I said. I want you to understand it. The clock on the wall ticked softly. Outside, the last bit of smoke drifted into the night sky. You have a choice, I continued, voice steady. We can go through counseling. Real counseling, not a few sessions to ease your guilt. It'll take months, maybe years. And even then, there's no guarantee we make it through. She nodded, breath trembling. Or, I said calmly, we can end this now, respectfully, fairly. No screaming. No revenge beyond what you already saw on the lawn. You walk your path, I walk mine, and we don't destroy each other in the process. Her face cracked with panic. No, please, I don't want to lose you. You already did, I said gently. But you might earn me back. That's the difference. She pressed her hand to her mouth, trying to breathe through the fear. What do you want? She finally asked. I want time, I said. And space. You'll stay in the guest room. Starting tomorrow, you're finding a therapist. Not for us, for you. Because whatever made you look for validation in hotel rooms won't disappear overnight. She nodded, wiping her face again. I can do that. And Craig, I added, you tell him it's over. And you do it in writing. Then you forward it to me. Not because I need control, but because trust isn't built on your word anymore. She closed her eyes, the reality hitting her harder than the flames on the lawn ever could. Okay, she whispered. I'll do it first thing in the morning. I believed she would, but belief and trust aren't the same thing. As she stood to go to the guest room, she paused at the doorway. Do you hate me? I shook my head.
No.
If I hated you, this would be easy. She nodded once, lips trembling, then quietly disappeared down the hall. When the house settled into silence, I stepped outside into the cool night. The air smelled faintly of ash and damp grass. The suitcase still sat where she had first seen it. I picked it up and carried it back inside, not to save it, but because the message had already been delivered. The brutal gift wasn't the keycard or the burning clothes. It was the truth. The kind she couldn't ignore, couldn't bury, couldn't charm her way around. The kind that forced her to face what she had done and who she had become. And for the first time in a long while, I felt something like peace. Not because things were fixed, but because they were finally real.